Hi folks, Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours. Pocket Hours is the only podcast made by realtors for realtors. Come listen as I interview high-producing brokers to hear their best practices. And don't forget that while you are listening, you are also earning clock hour credit. Tune in every other week to hear from someone new, and please remember to tell your broker friends about Pocket Hours so more folks can elevate their business. Be the agent you would hire. Looking forward to having you listen in. Hello folks, Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours, and I have the privilege of interviewing my friends and colleagues, Eric Martin and Emily Austin today, the Austin Martin team. And I'm super excited for you to hear from them. Folks, this is chock full of really, really good info. I say at the end of this interview, this is meaty. It's very meaty. So get your notebook out and your pen out because you're going to be taking notes. They have some amazing things to say about what to focus on and how they got into real estate. They talk a little bit about Ninja and the selling system that they have been very dedicated to, among many, many other things that they say, taking care of your clients in a really profound way. So without further ado, I'd love for you to hear from Eric and Emily. Hello, everyone. Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours, and I am super excited to have my friends and colleagues, Eric Martin and Emily Austin, on the show. Welcome. Excited to have you here.
Welcome, Jennifer.
All right, we're going to just jump right in because they're willing participants in this podcast to help us all learn more about real estate, where they came from, a little bit about teams, and any advice. So thank you for being on the show. Okay, tell me a little bit, first of all, where both of you, I know the answer to this, but our listeners don't, but where did you all come from? What part of town are you living in? How did you end up in Seattle?
So that'll take up the whole podcast.
It's a story of romance that initially started when we were 14.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we don't really remember meeting each other, but apparently we have some mutual childhood friends that introduced us many, many years ago in Canton, Ohio, actually Malvern, Ohio.
Okay.
My first kiss was in Eric's driveway, but not by him.
Not to me.
Oh, that's so perfect. I love it.
Yeah. And so at any rate, this mutual friend reintroduced us, 30 plus years later via Facebook. Mm-hmm. That turned into a little unhealthy obsession of,
long distance chats.
Yeah, long distance chats. And finally, Emily's like, I'm rushing home on Friday night after work to see if this guy's posted anything in Messenger. I should probably go meet him.
Fair enough.
Out she came, and you moved here in 2011. Mm-hmm. I've been here since 1993. So
wow. Okay. So you must have done something right, Eric, to get this woman to move all the way across the country for you. That's big. That's big news.
Yes. And we started out, we laugh about it, but we started out very realistically, like a contract. Mm-hmm. I promised to be dedicated to you for a year and not be a jerk. If you promise to not run home for a year every time you get homesick or we have a fight or something like that. And so we did a year and then we re-upped for another year. And that was about 11 years ago.
She keeps re-upping.
Keeps re-upping. That's good news. All right. I like it. I actually don't think the contract relationship is a bad idea. I think it's a great idea. Actually.
It worked for us, for sure.
It really was. We both had a sense. It's like, let's give it a year, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's allowed any outs for a year.
I like that.
And after a year, we'll see how you're doing because there was a lot of uncertainty. So that kind of gave her permission. Like after a year, if I want to run home, I can run home. So, but she's still here. She's still here. She still talks about running home occasionally.
Fair enough. Don't we all in some way? Whatever home is for us, right? Can we please run home? Yeah. Okay, so tell us a little bit about where you come from vocationally. So you ended up in real estate, but that's not where you were before that. What were you both doing before real estate?
I have only really ever had one other career. I was a hairdresser right out of high school. So I took my vocational studies in high school, my junior, senior year, and I graduated with enough hours to take my test. And I did. I took my test and passed and started cutting hair at the age of 17. Nice. And went on to really master that career from anything from just being a community hub with clients to starting a business with employees to educating product and color knowledge for John Paul Mitchell systems. And then I continued that when I moved out here because it seemed comfortable and safe. And then I thought I should probably do something else until I retire, whenever that is. So I decided to try something different.
Nice.
Yeah. And I have done so many U-turns on the road of life, it kind of feels like I'm running in circles right now. Most of my early career was in sales. I've sold home improvements. I've sold financial products. Then I moved to Seattle in '93, was working with Metropolitan Life at the time. And there was a tech company literally across the parking lot from where I was working. I ended up getting a job with them in their business development, corporate development, which was going out and finding partners that had complementary technology set. I kind of did the whole .com jump from company to company to company. Eventually, one of the companies I was with got bought by Intel. So I did a couple of years with Intel in their corporate development, which was basically their investment arm. So going out and looking for companies that they wanted to make sure succeeded because they had a technology that used a lot of chips. And so I did that for a little while, then left and went to stamps.com. And then .com went .gone.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So I suddenly found myself gainfully unemployed and thought, well, I'm going to go do something completely different, which I did. I then went and did 6 years at Bastyr, got 2 degrees, undergrad in herbal science, master's in acupuncture and Chinese medicine, opened a clinic, ran a clinic for 13 years. And then, of course, it's logical. I segued right into real estate.
It's funny. Every time I ask this story, it's a different answer. And it's so interesting how everybody ends up in real estate.
Yeah.
Because there really is no natural segue to real estate other than I started it when I was 18, which one of the people I interviewed said they were about in their early 20s and they're like, okay, I'm done with college. I guess I'll do real estate.
Wouldn't
but that's the only
been,
person.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so it was when Emily got her license, I was very much running my clinic. I had a clinic downtown. I had 5 employees. But there were parts of the job that Emily, coming out of the hair world, was not as comfortable with.
Let's be honest, I was struggling with technology.
And I had spent years writing contracts, literally writing contracts, with an attorney tied to my hip in the tech world. So purchase and sale agreements were not intimidating to me. So I started doing some of that stuff behind the scenes, essentially. And at some point, of course, the designated broker says, you probably need a license, right? So I got my license and was really just helping out, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I realized how much I kind of missed deal making, for lack of a better word, and just kind of being part of a sales organization. And so I started doing more and more and more. And eventually we were kind of side by side, even though I was still running a clinic. So my hours were getting super stretched. My clinic was suffering as a result of that split personality, because it is 2 very different personas in the acupuncture clinic versus in the real estate world. And then COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And so I literally had no choice but to shut down the clinic side of my life for about 45 days. And during those 45 days, we came back online in the real estate world. So then I was 100% in real estate. And then they started to lift some of the closures. And I was like, I don't want to go back. So I didn't.
Yeah. It's so interesting how COVID cleared things up for so many people and in so many ways, right? That's still sort of coming out, that this pandemic has brought clarity, as all sort of disasters do.
It not only brought clarity, it gave me permission to do something I don't think I would have given myself permission to do.
Yeah.
Right. I'd spent so much time and so many years and so much money getting to that point that to give myself permission to just walk away from it. But suddenly I was forced to.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I really like being on this side much, much better.
Yeah, it was painful. It was painful to witness. I had a similar experience when I let go of my lifelong career and had to unwrap my identity from that process. And it's been a process, but I think we're really finally starting to hit our groove.
Yeah. And what's interesting is you'll hear brokers sometimes say they left the corporate world, right? They left their 40-hour-a-week job so they could have an 80-hour-a-week job. I think with both Emily and I, because we both owned our own businesses, we've kind of always, well, not always, but me for the last 13, 14 years, and Emily always been self-employed. That piece of the transition was easy. It's just a matter of, are we spending 80 hours a week doing something we really like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. You spoke for a minute about your different personas when you were acupuncture and then now in real estate. But I want to ask you both to answer this question because I know that there are ties. So Emily, you own your own business, cutting hair, owning salons, etc. Eric, you owned your own acupuncture business. Now you're Austin Martin team and you own your own real estate business. What do you bring from hair cutting and acupuncture to the table for your clients? What's the tie?
For me, it's an ability to listen really well and to also help clients feel heard, to exercise, I think, the ability to maybe dig a little deeper than what the initial conversation is into like what the stressors are. I think just the ability to help someone feel like at that moment, they're the only thing you have on your mind, I should say. Maybe the interpersonal skills, the personal skills, communication skills, all the things that you can imagine somebody who had literally watched families grow from in high school to college to getting married to having babies.
I mean, she had the same clients for close to 30 years.
Yep.
Her first real estate client was somebody that was probably sat in your chair at age 13.
Yeah.
And then
happened to live out
25
here,
years later is buying a house from her.
That's amazing. I have to say, Emily, that, I think this is true for a lot of women. I'm not sure about men, but when I go to get my hair cut, that's a moment in time when I can relax and I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. It feels safe. I feel heard. And so your ability to practice and master that, which you just said, but I'm saying what a great tie-in, right? You're used to listening. You're used to holding things in a safe spot and helping people. That's amazing.
Yeah. And also just as a side note, and it was nothing I knew I was doing at the time, I have a real passion for connecting people. Not romantically. That's never been my strong suit, but really, truly, clients came to me for referral contacts all the time. And so that's been really fun for me, even out here, to build my network, to help line clients up with what they need and who they need. And so that came straight from hairdressing as well.
Frequently, I'll say, even if they don't know that they need it, right? She'll be like, she'll meet somebody and say, I have to introduce this person to so-and-so, right? I just know that there's a connection there, and she'll introduce them. And sure enough, these great friendships or business relationships are formed, even though they didn't realize they needed that other person in whatever aspect other than romantic, whatever aspect of their life, right? She's phenomenal at that. It's freaky to watch sometimes.
Yeah, that was what I carried over. I never gave it much thought, but apparently it has a purpose in my new career. So
for sure. Eric, I'm going to get to you in a minute, but I have to say something. At our brokerage Scout, we just did an exercise in one of our meetings where we said, if you could wrap yourself up in one word, not trying to limit you, but if you could wrap yourself up in what word really encompasses a lot of what you bring to the table, right? And so my word was builder. I love to build both with my hands. I love to build businesses. I love to build relationships. And Emily, connector is for sure one that sticks with you. Like, I'm like, yep, that's the word. Would you agree with that? You're nodding your head, but yeah.
Yeah, I've actually written it down multiple times in various exercises, sticky notes. Yeah, very much.
Great.
Yeah.
So Eric, talk to me about acupuncture, maybe other past businesses that you think show up for you in real estate.
It's interesting. The acupuncture, I mean, the acupuncture shows up, I think, in intangible or not as clearly identifiable ways. I mean, I did other careers for an equal amount of time, and I think a lot of that business experience, just contracts experience, negotiation experience, carries forward. But I think what acupuncture is a systems-oriented way of doing medicine. It's not reductionist like Western medicine. Very much, how does this asthma tie in with the skin problem, and how do I know it's all related to something in the large intestine? It's seeing connections that other people don't see. And so I think that really helps as well, as to be able to see things from a macro level and understand how systems work. And then the systems piece as well. I mean, I taught for several years at Bastyr. One of the classes I taught was the practice management class, how to actually run a successful acupuncture business. And the thing I would always teach people is, when somebody says, "What do you do?" you should never answer, "I'm an acupuncturist." Right?
Yeah.
Because that's a small piece of what we did. You answered, "I own an acupuncture clinic." Right? I'm a business owner. Sure. And that was a lot of it. So I think a lot of what I bring to this partnership is that how to run a small business. So it's the systems, it's the databases, it's building a website, it's all of those things that came with owning an acupuncture clinic.
Currently trying to master YouTube videos now.
Right on. Yeah, so I love it. Yeah. You guys are, I should say you guys, there's a woman here I'm talking to. You all are very good, I think, at your marketing and putting stuff out on Instagram, and sort of the Austin Martin team. It's such a great name. It's a great car, so we already like it. Right. Exactly. It's all good stuff. Okay, talk to me for a minute about what it looked like when you both jumped in. I mean, you sort of told the story of how you got into real estate, but if you could go back in time and talk to yourself when you first started, knowing what you know now, are there any pieces of advice that you would give listeners on this call that said, "We just got our license, we're just a couple years in. What can you tell us that we wish we could know now?"
As individuals and as teammates? Or
Sure, all the above.
As an individual, I would say, looking at my beginner self, possibly trying to figure out what type of learner you are initially. Would you do better in an environment where you were part of a team? Or are you the kind of person that loves to be dropped into the deep end of the pool and figure it out? And then find your brokerage or your tribe accordingly. And then I would say, just be patient. It seems like those around you are crushing it right away. But it just really depends, I think, on your contact sphere, and it's an evolving process. It's like farming. So being patient and trusting that what you're doing is planting seeds, creating connections for business down the road, and just being patient. I think I expected immediate success because I'd had success doing things in the past, and I was a little unprepared for
the time.
Yeah. And then as a team, I would just say, understanding what your strengths are and trying to play off of those strengths. I don't really try to dig into the stuff he's great at, and he just knows that I'm going to do the personal stuff like none other. So just kind of knowing what you need, and then sort of build your systems around that.
Yeah.
And I think I would say, and it's a piece I'm still struggling with, and that's finding community quickly. Right. Okay. And so what I'm struggling with is I had community, but it was a completely different community, and a community that knew me in a very different role. And so far, I haven't really managed to rebrand myself to that community as well as I could have or should have. Somebody once said that the best relationships you'll build are when you have a group of people all working towards a common goal. So figure out who that group is and what common goal you can work to. So whether that's a church group or you're on a nonprofit. I've recently started volunteering with Golden Bond Rescue, which is where we got our dog from. So where's CrossFit, a group of people? What's that?
CrossFit.
It could be a CrossFit gym. It could be Emily started a running club here, right? So quickly figure out tribe or tribes, right, that you can belong to and get in with. And if you are coming from a different background where people see you and know you in a very different light, it's important to figure out how to essentially remake yourself in their eyes so that they stop seeing you as the acupuncturist or the teacher or whatever classmate, whatever it happened to be, and start seeing you in this role so you can occupy that space in their brain as realtor.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. I will say this too, that sort of consistency around seeing people, which during COVID was such a challenge, right? But now that we have a little bit of more freedom in that, this running club, Emily, that I know you're a part of, I see you post about it. It's a consistency of these same people, roughly, seeing you on a regular basis. And of course, the conversation most naturally goes to how's the market, or what are you doing for work? How's your work? Because it's one thing we talk about because we all go do it, whatever it is that we do, right? So I love that advice to say, find your tribe or tribes. Church is one for me, right? That every week they see my face and they know that I'm in real estate. So I also heard somebody that I interviewed the other day said that they don't think too many people in their sphere know that they're a real estate agent. And I was like, well, that's a problem.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. We need them to know you're a real estate agent, and not because you're saying to them, you have to use me. You're saying, this is what I do and I'm good at it. So if it makes sense for you to connect me with someone who needs help, great. If they don't know, it's the worst feeling in the world to have somebody that you've known for however long even say, we just bought a house.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I didn't even have the chance because they didn't know, right?
Yeah.
They didn't know. Yeah. That's on me to tell them. Yeah. Okay, so transition. So I know you all. I've known you for a long time now. I don't even know. Years. I mean, 10, I don't know, something at least.
10 years, yeah.
I think about 10 years, yeah. And I've watched you come into this industry. I've watched you at the beginning of this industry, and now I've watched you take this turn. And it's been so interesting to see you, I mean, that's a weird word, but blossom into, hey, we're bona fide agents. We're doing really good work. We have transactional volume. We know the answers to a lot of these questions that we didn't know, 5 years ago. And not only that, we're becoming masters at this. And I would really say that to both of you. So congratulations on your journey. It's been fun to watch. But what do you think turned the corner for you? I think you had your best year ever, either last year or the year before. I can't remember. Last year. Okay.
Sure.
What do you say to the agent who says, I've been in 5, 7, 3 years, and I'm pretty plateauy. I'm staying at the same level and I want to go to the next level. What made the difference for you?
Some of it was timing, I think. I think we had planted enough seeds and enough of the seeds were sprouting.
Yeah.
I would also say the time that I've been in the business, I've grown more confident. So when I have these kind of conversations, I speak with more authority now. So we're a ninja-based broker team. We follow ninja principles and we do the ninja things. And I think things just really lined up. We really started identifying the things we were good at and we did more of them. And then we sort of parsed out the things we weren't very good at.
Awesome.
So what we focused on expanded.
Yeah. And I think part of it was just, I was able to come full time last year. So up until then, I was full time downtown working with patients and trying to keep that clinic vibrant. And once I sold the practice in October of 2020 and was full time into real estate in April of last year. So, being as quickly as you can jump in full time and give it your undivided attention, right? Undivided attention, I think is huge. So
I think that's very clear. It is really not realistic to say you're going to do it part-time while you do something else part-time.
Yes.
To get a part-time result.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Hobby real estate agents get hobby income.
Mm-hmm.
Any of you listening to this call that say, I've got my full-time job and I do real estate on the side, we're going to say in unison, stop it. If you want to be an excellent realtor, you have to be fully in. And as a brokerage owner, I will tell you that part-time agents scare the crap out of me. Mm-hmm. They don't know what they're doing. They make more mistakes. And as a client looking at you who say, hey, wait a minute, are you an acupuncturist or are you doing real estate in the evenings? That's a weird message to a client. It doesn't mean you're confident enough in your income level or ability to make money. I have to have this other job to supplement, right? So I love that once Eric said, I'm in, forced or otherwise, now he's super happy because he's all the way in. And that made such a difference in your income, honestly, in your income, right? Because people knew you were in. Yeah. And then for a minute, we've spoken about Ninja before, but just for new listeners on this call, Fort Collins, Colorado, Larry Kendall started a company called The Group, most successful real estate company in the nation. At least they were a while ago. I think they still are. And honestly, not the highest price point. So they're just doing a ton of volume. Came up with the Ninja Selling. You can get the book. You can go to the classes. It's the best training I've ever had. And I've been doing this 20 years. So a big shout out to Ninja Selling for any of you listening. Go do it. Awesome.
100%.
Okay, you've been in the business long enough, and I don't know if that means like 2 days or however many years, that you've encountered something weird, strange, funny. What can you think of something right off the top of your head that's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe as realtors we encountered this?
It was an open house for a listing that it was a big house in West Seattle, had been parceled out into a couple of different apartments, but they were selling everything, but not as apartments. It's like you're going to tie it back together probably at any rate. So we're open house in one portion of the, I think it was a duplex or a triplex at that point, but it still had renters in it.
And it was clear there was a lot of tension around the sale.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the renters did not want it sold, did not want out. And so at the open house, there's one or two couples like cooking breakfast in the kitchen, right? And so that's weird enough.
That's
right?
weird. Yep.
Yeah, they're like, bacon and waffles are being cooked in the kitchen.
In lots of packing boxes
Yeah.
and things. I mean, it was a bit of a mess, but
And then we work our
We're with
way.
clients.
We've got clients with us.
Wow.
We're doing 4 or 5 listings that morning, and this just happened to slot in. We'll hit it during the open house. We go upstairs in the bedroom, and there's this couple still in bed.
Oh boy.
Right, like just sitting there watching TV in bed in kind of slinky negligee.
Yeah. And
wow.
say, they were attractive. This was
Yeah.
a very attractive young couple. She had one of her legs pulled up and bent in her nightshirt, just sort of like you could see her whole thigh.
Wow.
And they were like, what do you want to know? We'll tell you anything you want to know about living here.
You're like, that's not what we want to talk about right now.
Right,
Let's move on to your outfit. Okay.
So that was
hilarious. We couldn't get out of there fast enough.
No, it was
Oh yeah, how uncomfortable.
And then the listing ended up going, like 2 days later, it's temporarily off market.
Yes. Hey, I bet they got some feedback on that one.
Yeah.
And shame on that agent, by the way, if I could just point a finger for just a minute and be judgy. Come on, people. That's not a house ready to go.
Got to rein that one in.
To send potential buyers into that environment was just wrong.
I love that you're like, we didn't know we should bring a plate for breakfast. Had we known,
exactly.
Right? We would have been ready to go.
Breakfast was weird enough, and then it just
got weirder.
I don't even want to go any further into
And
this
we're
house.
like,
what's next?
Yeah. Oh, scary. Okay, you're like, let's go. Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you. Oh man, yeah, this business is wild, isn't it? I mean, honestly, every day is a new day in real estate for funny, weird things. Okay, we're going to transition uncomfortably out of that into vulnerability just for a minute. Not that you haven't been already, but this business is not easy. And there is a stereotype a little bit around realtors that say, you don't have to work very hard and you make a buttload of money. And we know, because we're doing the work, that's just not true. Mm-hmm. But what is it that's hard for you about real estate?
What's hard for me about real estate is the unpredictability. Mm-hmm. It became clear to me pretty quickly as someone who worked by a schedule for so many years that, and also I didn't have children, so I've never had anyone muck up my day if I made plans. I say that affectionately. It's hard to think you're going to do something or set up things during the day only to find out that it all gets yanked out from underneath you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's been the hard part. Also, where's the next client coming from? We don't buy leads. We're, referral based brokers. So just those getting okay with the times where there isn't immediate business
Mm-hmm.
to work on our business
Mm-hmm.
instead of wonder or worry, I think has been the hardest part for me. Finding joy in those moments where I feel like I can get on top of something that I'm behind on, instead of panicking about, not getting all this done and am I going to sell another house again? Like just kind of the unpredictability about it, I think has been the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
And Eric, before you respond, I love, Emily, what you just said, because the on and in, you sort of hit on it, right? And this is a concept that I think a lot of brokers miss out. So if I'm not busy working with an active buyer or a listing, then a lot of brokers are out doing their thing, personal stuff, watching Netflix, hanging out, saying, when's the next person going to come in and help? I can help. But that sort of working in and on, splitting that time, making it be a balance, which is a ninja practice, as we know. And you just said it, sort of accepting the moments where you have a minute where you're not running around showing houses or getting a home ready for market to work on your business, right? Like look at that marketing plan and look at who's your next pop buy going to be and whatever it is. And diligently being disciplined to make that happen is what produces your next client, as we know, right? Yeah, that's great. Okay, Eric.
And to segue right from that, I think the hardest thing for me is to stop working on the business.
Okay.
I'm constantly working on the business because I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But literally, I wake up at 8 a.m. and I start doing all the things, or 8 a.m. That would be nice. 5 a.m. when our schnauzer gets us up. So those are my golden hours between 5 and 8. I get a ton done because it's both of us.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody pulling the rug out and saying, you got to stop now, unplugging the real estate machine. It's like we wake up talking about real estate. We go to bed talking about real estate, and all the minutes in between are talking about real estate.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the hardest part for me is figuring out when it's okay to stop working on the business and go be something other than a real estate agent. So.
And a mentor of ours, Jennifer, has told us many, many years, it's really no fun to hang out with somebody that only talks about one thing all the time. I think it took Eric a long time and a lot of years and a lot of schooling to figure out that he really loves building a business. And so he spends a lot of time building our business.
Yeah.
And it's important, but I have to remind him sometimes that clients want to see more of him. They want to hear more from him. So like I sometimes have to pull him out of that role and push him in front of people.
Sure.
So they can engage with him more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think the benefit, which you're sort of, and we're gonna talk about teams right now, which is perfect segue, because the benefit that you all have being in this team, right, is that here's Emily's side of this coin where she's like, people are great, let's go hang out, let's do this, social, and Eric's over here like, can I just sit behind this computer for 8 hours today because I love this, I'm gonna geek out on this. And the reality is your clients want to see both of you in the opposite role sometimes too, right? So you have the benefit of the team coming together, doing what you do best, doing it really well, but also stretching yourself sometimes and showing up at that party when you're like, I would have loved to come to your party, but I don't want to come. What's that T-shirt say? It says something like that. Sorry, I'm late. I didn't want to come. I don't know. It's an introvert T-shirt that I think is awesome, right? But it's that like, oh, I'm gonna stretch myself a little bit because at the end of the day, your clients are actually far more interested in you as people.
Mm-hmm.
So more than I ever expected, right? I had clients over one time. There was a group of clients that I helped over 5 years and they were all work for the same company. I had them over for a barbecue and they all were talking about how excited they were to come to see where I lived, to meet my dog, to see how I decorated. They're just curious. And I thought, really, who cares? They care. They actually really care. So that sort of in your life, different than your 9-to-5 job, which you could show up at and you go home and you never have to involve them in your personal life. That's not how real estate goes. Yeah, right. So that balance and stretching yourself, that's part of the gig. Okay, team, talk to me a little bit. We've sort of hit on it a lot. Is there anything else you want to say around teams for people that are considering teams, people that are in teams?
I will just say, I think part of what works for us is that we are different personality types.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'd be less effective as a team if we were both. In Ninja, they have the four personality types. There's the power people, the party people, the peace people, and the perfection people. And Emily is totally a party person, right? Very social, very extroverted, and a peace person. She wants to make sure everybody's taken care of and everybody's happy and no feathers get ruffled. And I'm on the other side of the coin completely. I'm much more of a perfection and
Power.
a power person. And so because of that, I think we make a really well-rounded broker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And so I think that's part of it is to one, recognize where your strengths are and make sure that your team members are complementing and filling in those places where you're not as strong.
Yeah, and we have a lot of uncomfortable conversations too. I mean, we live together and we work together, and there are times when I'm like, stop elbowing me out of the way, or
Right.
I know he's rescuing because I'm out of my comfort zone and he wants to help. So I think as a team, just try to work on an org chart. Who's doing what?
Mm-hmm.
And iron that out quickly so that you know what lane you're in and you're doing the things. And then we have a weekly meeting every Monday at 3:30 for an hour. That is a non-negotiable.
Nice.
We work, what does our week look like? What did last week look like? Where did we fall short? What do we need to work on? I mean, we really are pretty structured with our systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're going to be a team, it's best to probably iron some of that stuff out.
I think if anybody were to watch us from the outside, they would very quickly come to the conclusion, okay, they're not winging it, right? There is a plan in place and we're working the plan day in and day out. Having that kind of structure is again, of course, I'm a perfection person, right? I need we like that structure.
And I also want to say just a huge shout out to the brokers that are solo, like yourself. I'm not saying you don't have a support system to help you, but it's remarkable that anyone does this job on their own because there are so many moving pieces all the time. And I'm in awe of solo brokers out there, especially ones with kids. I mean, I'm just, wow, because I have the benefit of having a partner.
I think you know this, but by percentage, people in real estate that join together for teams, the percentage of people that end up staying with that team over even 3 years is very, very small. So real estate seems to draw people that are independent by nature and sort of rule breakers in a way. Like we don't want to conform. There's a lot of non-conformist realtors, right? So trying to bring two of those people together and say, now be a team when each of them want to do their own thing, their own way. And this is why they left the other jobs that they have, because they want to do it right. That it's romantic for a minute and then it's not so romantic afterwards. So you have maybe the benefit and sometimes the curse of it actually being romantic also. And you're in both the romance of partnership in life personally, and you're in a partnership in business. And you hit on something a little while ago to say you have to have moments where you turn off realtor speak and just be each other's people.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you do that?
We're still working on that.
Yeah.
And that is one of the hardest things to work on. It really is.
Well, it's helpful that both of us are completely comfortable working all day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not joking. Like that's helpful. And if one of us was maybe in more need of less work time, that might be challenging. I think by nature, we're very good communicators. Even if we're arguing about something, we've really worked hard, I think, to take a step back and diffuse and figure out what's really behind it. And I said this, but I meant that, I mean, maybe it's just because we're older. I'm not really sure that we have a secret sauce for that.
But I know you're both well read too. Listen to podcasts, read books, and are pretty committed. And that same diligence you bring to your clients in real estate, I think you also show up with to each other.
Sure.
And maybe that's part of the secret sauce you're talking about, is say we're always learning. We're always learning. We're always asking good questions.
Always personal development and professional development going on. We're both
mostly he is like an avid reader of business development. I'm more into the individual personality development. Again, opposites, but one thing we have in common is I've always sought out mentors my whole other career. I mean, I always had mentors and I always had people I looked up to, and I always trained under them and took classes under them. And then I just pulled that right into real estate and surrounded myself with whatever was being offered. I was in the front row.
That's super true. I remember that about you, Emily. It's like no matter what we put on, we used to work in the same brokerage, and Emily was always there. And I love that sort of quest for learning, to say, no matter what, I'm going to pick something up from this, right?
Taking notes and then referring back to the notes later that day.
Right.
Really?
Talk about a machine, right? You admire us solo brokers. I admire your quest for knowledge. It's amazing. So that's great.
I was the last of 8 kids, and I was raised in a very Catholic household, and I always am afraid I'm going to get in trouble. So I really think that's a big driver with me, is like, I must learn all the things so I get it right and I don't get in trouble.
We're going to thank Catholicism for that one. That's great.
We're going to kick out the rest of it, but that's
right. That's right.
That was good. I think our job is really to help people understand when they first call us and say they want to buy a house or sell a house. Our job is really to figure out why. Why? What's behind it? Helping temper people's expectations, and also helping them understand that they still have to move no matter what. They still need shelter no matter what. And leaning into uncomfortable conversations with them, looping back and reminding them of what their reasons are, no matter what the market itself looks like. How can we best serve them with what their needs are at that time? So I mostly agree. I think things probably will level out a little bit more. And I think the more we can remain calm and in touch with people's feelings and help guide them through that process, the better. But also, we're learning about each other when one needs to step in and one needs to step back in terms of personality types, right? So if somebody's in need of, hardcore stats and data, Eric steps up, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the predictions right now all revolve around inflation. I mean, that is really what's going to drive the interest rates, and the interest rates, as we've seen, make a difference, right? And so every major economist that was making predictions a year ago got it wrong. But he thought we'd be at 9% inflation still.
Well, we didn't know we'd have a war in Ukraine.
We did, exactly. So
I will also say what we're seeing in the field with our clients is our buyers are ready to rock.
Yep.
They're like, maybe they weren't even involved in the lower interest rate game. Maybe they were, and they're realizing, okay, that's over. That's in the past. But the buyers we're seeing, even if we host open houses, they're ready to roll. And they have more choices now. So that's kind of fun. And sellers, we just have to guide them through that they're not likely going to get what their neighbor got earlier in the year.
For sure not. Yeah, that's changed.
But it's so much of it, and this is kind of the what else. When things really became apparent that they were shifting, I rewrote my affirmation, changed my affirmation, which is part of the ninja process. And the affirmation was, I see opportunity everywhere in this shifting market. Just recognizing that just because the market is shifting doesn't mean there's less opportunities. It just means there's different opportunities that you're going to have to learn to recognize.
Yep, I love that. I think it's so, listeners, I think you'll relate to this as I say it out loud, but as I ask that question, what each of you said in response to that question demonstrates what we've been talking about this entire interview, which is to say you bring your perspective and your strengths to the table, and that's what makes Austin Martin a great team. And both of those things are needed and true, right? It's to say we're listening to our clients, we're talking them through a changing market, which, by the way, you better get real used to doing because our market always shifts. So get used and practice to talking about it. And when people need to move, they need to move. And when people need to buy a house, they need to buy a house. So the market is for them to have knowledge about. It's not necessarily to have talk them out of or into the perfect quote unquote time to be buying or selling. Yeah, if you're representing investors, this is a different conversation, right? This isn't where they have to live. But if you're representing primarily, this is our home, right? Then the timing of your life is what we want to help guide you through when that time is ready for you to do that. And the market is just information around that. It's not to dissuade you. So I love that. I love both the concrete stats and also the, what do you need? Where are you coming from? How can we help? So that's awesome. Okay. Last thing, if you were to say, we do an exercise in our business planning class, which I know you all have been a part of when I taught it for years, it's to say one thing. If I'm going to leave this conversation and I'm a broker listening to it, what's one thing you would say this week to focus on? We've talked about a bunch of things. There's been amazing nuggets of wisdom. I hope you all have enjoyed this. I have certainly enjoyed it. But what's one thing? If you would say, hey, broker, this week, do this one thing, what would it be?
A light bulb went off in my head this week. We were talking about looking at our hot and warm and cold list, or whatever you want to call it, your spreadsheet, your CRM, looking at it as each individual, what are their needs at this moment? Instead of just saying, oh, they're not ready to buy yet. You know, they've got to get through this, that, or the other before they're ready to buy. Doesn't mean they're not in need of something right now. And that could be an article, that could be, hey, I saw this at Home Depot, maybe this will help you with your, home improvement, or looking at that database, that hot, warm, and cold list or hot, warm list as something that actually has an immediate need. And what is that immediate need? And then, put like little ticklers in your phone that if you find out maybe they're remodeling something and it won't be done for 2 months, then set something in your phone 2 months from now. How's it going? So that you're being more intentional about where your thoughts are going and what people need. I would say that's one thing I would say as a takeaway today.
So good. And I love it because the focus has shifted from when's my next client going to come, when's my next commission going to come, to how can I help someone's life get better today, even if it's not I'm selling them a house.
100%.
And folks, that comes back to you no matter what. So if making money is your goal, you're going to miss a ton of opportunity, by the way, to have a better life and be a better human. And by the way, probably make more money than if you were focusing on just money and commissions, right? How can you make your client's life better today? Love it, Emily. Eric?
100% on board with Emily on this one.
Yeah.
We've really started
rethinking.
Part of it is every day you should be looking at your hot list and your warm list, and now we're looking at it with a slightly different lens, which I think is super helpful. But I think real estate reviews. I think people are hungry to know what's going on in the market and hungry to have a conversation. And so sending out real estate reviews, putting something in front of them that gives them a little like, oh, they've done some research on what's happening in my neighborhood, and following up with a phone call to allow them to ask all the questions that are in their head right now and have that conversation.
Yeah, they're nervous, right? They've all experienced the big high of the last couple of years if they're a homeowner. They're all seeing their Zestimates and their Redfin estimates and all the stuff, and they feel like things are plummeting, even though like we could talk them through why it wasn't really a sustainable market. But at the same time, they're just a little concerned. And so I think also another good thing to think about is engaging them. Like, how do you feel about your home value right now? Or what are you hearing about the market? I know what I'm hearing. What are you hearing? And that way you're sort of giving them an opportunity to ask some questions about it and engage them in dialogue. And these, we're trying to do 2 a week, 2 real estate reviews a week.
It took us a long time to get to the point where that system was kind of dialed in. I'm happy to say that system is now dialed in.
But the follow-up is key, because you really can't just drop it in somebody's email,
right?
Expected to generate any. It's really just it's just trying to figure out what they need. It's
an opportunity to talk and find out. And the ones that say, oh yeah, I got it, I didn't look at it. It's like, that's important information. Talk about something else, but they're not interested in real estate right now. But the ones that, reach out to you and say, hey, I got the report. I'm trying to understand what I'm seeing here, right? It's like, okay, there's somebody that is actively thinking about the valuation of their property. And, there's fertile grounds for some more conversation there. So
Love it. Awesome advice. Thank you so much. I will say too, people's favorite topic typically is themselves, whether they admit it or not. So anytime, if I have an email that says, hey, do you want to know what your home's worth? I don't care what company it is. I open that email. I want to know, what do you think my home's worth, right? So giving them information about them, about the home that they own, is a great way to segue into saying, how can I help? Or who do you know that I can help? So Eric and Emily, thank you so much. This has been meaty. It's been really fun. It's been great nuggets of advice and information. I've gotten to know you better, and I've known you for 10 years. So this is fun.
You gave us a great platform to talk about our favorite topic.
That's right.
Well, and you are a huge part of our mentorship.
Absolutely.
So we thank
you.
Thank
you very, very much for all that you've given us over the years.
Absolutely. So. And I've enjoyed every single episode of these Pocket Podcast Hour. I mean, I just chew them up. I think they're great.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad. And thank you for being on the show. And for those of you listening, obviously you listened to 3 of these in a row and you send in, answer some pretty easy, straightforward, almost obvious questions. I make them kind of funny so you can know the answer pretty easily. And then you get 3 clock hours. So feel free to reach out to info@scoutrealestate.com for more info. And Austin and Martin team, my pleasure. And thanks again.
You're very welcome. Jennifer. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for listening in to Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.